All right. The priority today is to get you to understand about the quiz score adjustments that's available on Schoology. So if you go on to Schoology, you'll see this quiz score adjustment assignment. It says complete this Google form only if you completed and submitted corrections for both Unit 3 quizzes and scored better on the test than the combined quiz score. Because the test represents the content on both those quizzes, it's only going to replace the score if your average on the test is higher than your combined. So if you go to this link, it'll take you to a Google Doc where you can fill in your last name, your first name, your class period. You guys are period 7. And then what I ask you to do is tell me your quiz 1 score, your quiz 2 score, add those two values together. Here you have to divide by 50 because it's out of 50. They were 22 and 28 coincidentally. And then I want you to tell me what your Unit 3 test score is. And then if your test percentage is better than the combined quiz scores, then you're going to let me know, and you're going to say, yes, I turned in my corrections, and then you're going to hit submit. If that pertains to you, all of those scores are available on SIS. So I'm fairly updated with SIS. Your Unit 4 test review packet and homework have to be entered in, and I'm going to grade your Unit 4 tests over Thanksgiving break. But you can find these scores on SIS. Any questions about what this Unit 3 quiz score adjustment is? Everybody good with understanding that? Okay. The next conversation is about the math spaces. If you look on your SIS, if your math space was done on time, and I want to make sure everybody understands this. So if your math space is done on time and you score greater than or equal to 70%, you get a 10 out of 10 on your SIS grade every time I assign a math space. If you score below 70% or don't do it, I assign you a redo, and that redo is available for a week. So when you submit the redo, you will get whatever score represents how you did. If you get a 93 on it, you get a 9 out of 10. If you get an 88, you get an 8 out of 10. So whatever that first value of your percentage is, that's what goes in as your homework score. Lots of kids are missing the first chance to do the math space, getting assigned the redo, completing the redo, and then emailing me like, hey, it's not updated. And my response is, hey, it doesn't sync. So MathSpace and SIS are not synced. They don't talk to each other. So what I have to do is wait until that second assignment expires, and then I go through and I see who did it, and then I update SIS. So if you complete the math space, awesome, thank you, I'm glad, that's what we wanted. But those two systems do not talk to each other. It takes these 10 phalanges to make that happen. So I wait until everyone has had the chance to do it, and then I update everyone's score at the same time. Make sense? Okay, our next conversation has to do with your quiz corrections. So if you, not quiz corrections, test corrections, if you struggled on the proofs, I have for you this proof help guide, and you're welcome to take one, and then you're welcome to give it back. You're welcome to keep it. I'll make more copies. If more people need copies, that's fine. But what we want is everybody to be able to get the help that they need on the proofs. So what I did was I put test B on one side and test A on the other side. And if you look at this, it's kind of cool. Cool's relative, right, to mathematics. I get it. If you look at the difference between proof A and proof B, they were actually the same proof, just in reverse. So it's good exercise for you to see if you could do both of them. So for this first one, we're given the fact that angles FAD and BDE, these two angles here, we're given the fact that these two angles are supplementary, and then we need to prove that the lines are parallel. If you look at test B, we're given that the lines are parallel, and my job is to prove that those two angles are supplementary. So in each of them, we reverse the given and the proof. So it's funny how similar each of the justifications are. Same thing is true for test B. You have this figure. You are given the fact that 1 and 2 are supplementary and 1 and 3 were congruent. And then you have to prove that the lines are parallel. So here you needed that converse. For test A, we gave you the lines are parallel and 1 and 3 are congruent, and you had to prove supplementary. So if you are a friend who needs this during our work time, you're more than welcome to take this proof help, and then maybe that'll help you with your corrections. Your corrections and the geometry retake are due by Thursday the 9th. So if you have your Unit 3 tests and your corrections with you, you might want to write down. So here's today. We gave you 2 after-school days next week, Wednesday, Thursday, and then 2 after-school days the week after, Wednesday, Thursday. If you put off retaking until this day here, you run the risk of having conflicts. And here's the deal. When it comes to who wins that conversation between, I need somebody to make up a test. Are we paying attention? Because when you ask me questions about due dates and conflicts and can we, you got to pay attention. You got to force yourself to focus. You can do it. Be a student. If you put off taking the retake until the very last day, you run the risk of a conflict. And if you miss a retake deadline, that's on you. I have to make sure that you take all the tests for the first go around. So if you miss it because you're absent, you need to get in here and make it up. But if there's a conflict on a retake, yeah, that's on you. All right, let's quickly talk about, and then I'll let you work and review on some simplifying of radicals. There's a couple different schools of thought of how to do this. I'm not a fan of this method at all. So some teachers like to teach divide by 2 and then divide by 5 and then breaking it down. So for me, taking something like 80 and dividing it by 2 and then dividing it by 2 and then dividing it by 2 and then dividing it by 2, this is a waste of my time. So if you need that, feel free to do that tree like that. What I prefer doing is looking for my perfect squares, my best friends, everywhere I go. 1 squared, 2 squared, 3 squared, 4 squared, 5 squared, 6 squared, 7 squared, 8 squared, 9 squared, 10 squared, 11 squared, 12 squared, 13 squared, 14 squared, 15 squared. if I can keep these numbers in my head, then they help me make the work so much faster and easier. I'll show you what I mean. If I recognize that 250 is 25 and 10, right away I have a perfect square. Our product property with radicals tells us that if we have a radical, if you have the square root of a times b, you can call that the square root of a times the square root of b, which means that I can break this down into the square root of 25 times the square root of 10. So I can call that the square root of 10 times 5, or 5 roots of 10. So for me, breaking 250 down into 25 and 10 is super fast because I can take the square root of 25 and I don't have to worry about breaking this down, finding my double factor, and then multiplying this back again. Because this property says that I can combine or I can split, I can put these together. So what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to, instead of writing 45, I'm going to write 9 times 5. Do you know why? Johnny, what's special about 45? What's special about 45? Talk to me about its factors. It sure does. It has one of my best friends in it. Good job. So just the same as when you go to the cafeteria, you're looking for your best friends. You get on the bus, you're looking for your friends. You go to a football game, basketball game, you're looking for your friends. You go to the mall, you're looking for your friends. Everywhere I go, I look for my friends. There they are. 1, 4, 9, 16, 25. Those are my best friends. Every problem I go to, I'm looking for them. So instead of writing 60, I'm going to write, why would I write 60 as 4 times 15? Because 4 is a perfect square. So just the same as my product property says, if two things are times each other under the same radical sign, you can split them. That same property says if two things are split and they're under the same radical sign, you can go ahead and join them. I can put these under the same radical sign. So here's what I love. 9's a perfect square. He comes out as 3. 4's a perfect square, and he comes out as 2. Now I know 15 is 5 times 3, and here I have a double factor. Anytime I have a double factor, it comes out as 1. And that's going to leave me the square root of 3 with no friends. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 times 5, 30. So I wind up with 30 roots of 3. It's a numbers game where you try to spin the numbers around in your head, trying to look for patterns and ways that you can simplify it faster. Anytime you have a variable raised to a power, it'll come out as 1, same as those double factors. If I have 7 B's, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Imagine forming groups of 2. Because this index means I'm looking for square roots to perfect factors, I can bring out 3 B's, and I'm going to have 1 left over without a partner. Here he is. When we talk about 80, instead of breaking down 80 like this, my preference would be to call 80 4 times 20 and 4 times 5. That's an easier double factor for me to find. And this comes out as 1 with 5 left in the inside. Then I can neaten this up, putting my coefficient out in front. Anytime I have a radical squared, this means 2 times the square root of 20 times 2 times the square root of 20. That's 2 times the square root of 20 times the square root of 20. My commutative property says you can go ahead and multiply things in any order you want to. Anytime you have this same value under the radical sign squared, that eliminates my radical sign. So I have 2 times 20 is going to be my final answer. 4 times 20 sounds a lot like 80 to me. All right, so you have more practice here on the back, some more practice. So go ahead and with your group, see how you do with each of these, and we'll come back in and check at the end with answers. Once you finish this, you're welcome to work on your test corrections, or if you have questions, you can flag me down and talk to me about that if that is burning a hole in your brain. All right, off you go. Should we talk about 3 and 6? Now, if you want to divide by 2, we got to talk about these divisibility rules. Anytime you have an even number, it's divisible by 2. I got to tell you something. Before I start dividing by 2, I'm always going to check 4. Because 4 is a perfect square, and it helps me break it down in double the time. I like 4. He's my favorite perfect square. Once I get 4 and 47, 47 is a prime number. He doesn't have any factors. There's nothing I can do with him. Are we okay with the variables? Is that making sense to you? Now, if you want to break all of this apart, remember I said, if you've got all this under one hat, you can split up the hats. So if it makes sense to you to deal with your variables and coefficients separately, that's fine. Remember, everything is multiplied. So there's no addition or subtraction happening here. Just making sure that you get, and I'm telling you what, to avoid making mistakes, if you need to draw 5 A's and find your 2 groups with your 1 left over, do it. Because the more times you do it, the more you'll understand how to go about working that. So 40, again, I see as 4 and 10. That's a perfect square. Square root of 4 is going to be 2, 10 stuck inside. This whole noise is going to be 3 squared times the square root of 2 squared. Now, somebody made the comment about, I think it was Mason, said he likes to just put 3 back inside. So when 3 was inside, he was 9. 9 times 2. So he sees 18. And then when he squares, then he knows that this square cancels out that radical. And that's how he gets his 18 there. Whatever makes sense to you. These are all things that are being multiplied. 2 times 10 times 9 times 2. These are coefficients that need to be multiplied. And that 10 under the radical, that's as good as he gets. The biggest mistake is somebody will call him prime. Oh no, he's not prime. 10 can be broken down into 5 times 2. He's not prime. He just doesn't have any perfect squares or double factors. See the difference? All right, let's talk about the back. Now, in my head, I know that 12 is 4 and 3, but I wrote 12 as 2 and 6. Do you see why? I like to spin the numbers around in my head. I like to play games with them. I like to think ahead and set myself up for success for it working out. So I rewrote 12 as 2 times 6. Do you see here is 12? And here is my 6. And I can put them under the same radical sign, pull out my double factor quickly. Now, there's more than one way of doing this. If you want to do it another way, that's fine. As long as you end up with this simplified value, you're good. You're good. I like to pick out my coefficients, 8 and 3, and bring them out front. And then I put everything under the same radical sign. Notice I don't call this 8. I call it 4 times 2. I don't call this 6. I call this 2 times 3. Because here's a perfect square, he comes out as 2. Here's a double factor, he comes out as 2. So I set myself up for getting it done in as few steps as possible. The less steps you take, the less mistakes you risk making. I'm looking for my best friends everywhere I go. Square root of 4, best friend ever. Again, there's tons of different ways of doing this. As long as you wind up with 96 roots of 3, you're in good shape. Last two. Here's my coefficients, 5 and 3. That's where I get my 15. And here's my 5. And then here's my 10. I found my double factor, and out he comes. Again with my coefficients. Here's 4, here's 3. This 5 is squared. That's why I have 2 of them. Here's my 3. Here's my 3. Here's my 21. See it? There's my 21. And then the square root of 2 twice. Here it is once and twice. Here's a double factor, he comes out here. Here's a double factor, he comes out here. And a 7 is stuck inside. He doesn't have any friends. Sound okay? If you are a friend who struggles with math facts, I'm sorry. Your 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade teachers should have held you more accountable. It's not too late for you to learn your math facts. Start practicing. Because the better you are with your number sense, the better you are spinning numbers in your brain, the happier you will be, especially when you get to Algebra 2 next year and you start factoring and you start doing. If you can spin numbers around in your brain, and the more you do it, the better you get every single time. Sound okay? All right. So